Well, it's no surprise that I keep saying that 2020 hasn't necessarily been the greatest year for new music within the progressive rock scene, so I keep finding really fun and great albums from yesteryear, and this one proves no exception to that. Let's dive into this one. The Forest by Chronicles. So, Chronicles, I couldn't actually find too much information about. They just kind of came out of nowhere. As far as I can tell, this is their first album, their debut album, and I was quite blown away. A fan of mine had reached out to me and said, you gotta check these guys out. They're a blend between Protest the Hero and Between the Buried and Me, and really, that is the best way to describe these guys, because they take both great aspects of the band that I've just mentioned and smush them together into this work. It has the brutality and fun aspect of both bands. The main drawback, and something that I want to really pin down right at the word go, I couldn't help but notice those two bands throughout the entire run of this album. It starts off with Synopsis and Vanished, and both of these tracks feel deadlifted off of Between the Buried and Me, and there are a number of times that the lead singer is essentially channeling Rhodey's vocal works within either his screaming, his yelling, or just how he brings about that style of music. But the guitar works, the interplay between the guitars and the vocal works throughout this album really feel like Between the Buried and Me and Protest the Hero. And what I really appreciate is also the level of fun that we have on this album. Like something off of the 5th track of Torment, it feels an odd choice of title for this particular piece, but about the halfway mark, we come into like this ragtag fun time, fun jam of a track, something that we would almost hear from like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, like their fun tracks, and it really bleeds into this like happy-go-lucky type of a track. This is what I love. Like that's something that we would have heard from like Haken's Aquarius album as well, and this isn't the only point of the album where they have this fun inflection, and that's something that I love about this band and this album is the amount of fun that they're bringing towards this really dark and really heavy musical atmosphere within it. Now, the one main criticism that I have for this band, outside of the fact that they're not necessarily ripping it off, because I feel like there's enough new inflections and new personality within this that they're not a complete ripoff of Protest the Hero or Between the Buried and Me or any other bands out currently. But the biggest drawback to me is that the album's runtime and length is a little too long. It's coming in at about an hour and 5 minutes, which I think is way too long for this style of music, at least with the types of tracks that we have on here. Like there's a total of 11 tracks off of this, and I think that's way too many. I think they could have shaved at least about 20 minutes off of this and gotten a superior quality product out of it and kind of trimmed off some of the moments that they're wandering the landscape a little bit. I feel like Through the Forest and The Road, some of these tracks I feel like they could have been cut off without losing too much momentum overall within the overall runtime of the album. Maybe putting those on a bonus track or releasing it as a deluxe special edition, but over an hour's worth of music is just a little too much, especially with most tracks running about the 5 or 6 minute mark. Because they start to bleed together and not in necessarily a good way. And the album also ends with Alive, 11.5 minute track. And I feel like that was a really good move of theirs, because Alive being the final track really punctuated this album in a very good way. Like even though the runtime is a little bit on the long side, I feel like the end track of Alive really justifies the length. I know I'm contradicting myself in that sense, but I still enjoy that Alive is such a clear endpoint on this album. And I know that it's most likely a concept album in some sorts, but that's no excuse to go as far as they do in terms of length. But I mean, overall, I've still been really digging this album. I find I keep returning to this album time and time again, whether or not I really want to. Like, there are other albums that I need to review that I've been putting off because I've been returning to this album. So this one definitely gets the note seal of approval, and you guys should check it out. It's one that I would have no problem picking up in physical format. I never felt like I was bored throughout the runtime, even though it is a little bit on the long side. I again love all the interplay between all the different musicians. I feel like they're having a ball and having a blast. Those fun inflections that we have running throughout the album, it really brings forth a really enjoyable runtime of music, even though it is a little bit on the long side. So yeah, if you're a fan of the brutality of Between the Buried and Me, or the fun aspects of Protest the Hero, or vice versa, definitely give this album a spin. It is well worth your time. I highly, highly recommend this album, and I give it a full note seal of approval. I think it's a great album that you guys should check out. So that's about it for The Forest from Chronicles. What did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? I know from me, I'm going to be really excited for whatever these guys put out next. So I'm going to be keeping my eye out for these boys, especially when they grow past their influences and become somebody else's influence in the future. I think they're this type of band. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.